Hello, my name is Peter Larson. I'm the chair of the Ottawa Forum on Israel-Palestine, and I'm happy to be joined today by Dania Majid. Dania is with Vote Palestine. She is a lawyer, a Canadian lawyer of Palestinian origin. And Dania, I want you to tell us a little bit about this Vote Palestine campaign that you're involved in. So thank you for spending a few minutes with me.
Thank you for inviting me.
My understanding, Dania, is that this campaign is actually organized by a group of people or a group of organizations. Can you just tell me who's involved?
Sure. The Vote Palestine campaign is coordinated by a diverse group of Palestinian solidarity organizations who in past elections have done some election campaigning work. And these groups tend to have a more national focus. So the coordinating partners are the Arab Canadian Lawyers Association, CJPME, Independent Jewish Voices, Just Peace Advocates, and Palestine Youth Movement Toronto.
Okay. And sorry.
Oh, and I was just going to say, but in terms of the campaign, the real engine of the campaign is coming from the partners and the endorsers that joined the campaign. And at this point, we have almost 1,000 individuals and organizations who care about human rights who have signed on to that campaign. So, our group is the maybe coordinating, but the real engine of who's involved comes from our diverse coast-to-coast endorsers and partners.
Okay, well, that's pretty impressive. Good for you. Can you just remind me what the objectives of the campaign are?
Sure. And we have the short-term objectives is that we want candidates and parties to know that, from coast to coast, that Canadians want to see the government take a much more principled approach on issues related to Palestine. And that these positions are going to be part of their ballot box decision making when they head out to the polls on September 20th, and that these are going to be questions that they're going to be asking their candidates when they come across them at the farmers market or the knocks on the front door. Now, in the longer term, because as you know, Canadian elections are quite short. In the longer term, we hope that the Canadians will continue to press their government, their elected officials on these platform demands. So they are very much a starting point in the work that needs to be done after the election. And really, that's where the real work happens. The other objective and element that we're looking into is, as you know, the Vote Palestine campaign is something new. It's very much geared towards the election, but there's been so much solidarity work that has been happening, over the years, coast to coast, on a local and grassroots level, and we saw that upswell, the groundswell that happened in the spring. So what we want to do is to amplify the amazing work of these grassroots organizations on that national level through their partnerships, sharing their work, sharing, the messages they're sending to their communities on the local level, because really that's where elections are won and lost. And, again, we want to give voice for the many Canadians who have felt ignored. And we want to just build on that mobilization we saw in the spring and create this vehicle for Canadians, especially the youth and especially our first-time voters, to engage in the election and make sure that they feel that their voices are heard to the people that, by the people who are going to be representing them in Ottawa.
Dania, when most people are going to be voting, they'll be voting on a range of issues. They're, for most people, I would venture that the top of mind issues have more to do with climate change, or maybe right now, what's happening in Afghanistan, or unemployment, or COVID, and so on. So given that, it's hard to get, do you agree it's going to be hard to get Palestine into a crowded agenda? And how do you hope to do that?
Well, we absolutely agree that the question of Palestine and how our governments treat Palestinian advocates here at home, as well as the issues abroad, is one of many important issues. And I think most of the people who are going to be joining and endorsing the Vote Palestine campaign are going to be definitely interested in those issues. But we also think it's important that we want to add having a human rights-based approach to Palestine as one of those issues. And the interesting thing is in the election platforms that we have seen come out already from some of the parties, their positions on the Middle East is one of their platform positions. So, they're talking about it. They have opinions on it in their platforms, and they have, set out how they're going to address the Middle East if they get elected. So we think it's really important that as Canadians, we have input in that as well, because it represents us on the international, the global sort of stage. Those decisions have real impacts on the ground about, on the human rights of Palestinians, but it also has impacts on us as advocates in Canada, because, we are seeing, we do see concerns with Palestinian advocates are, being attacked for our positions or being, silenced by those positions. And we want to send that message that, there's a very large group of diverse Canadians, again, from coast to coast in every province. And we've seen that through our endorsers that really are calling for a very principled human rights-based approach on Palestine. And we hope through that campaign that we will provide the tools and the resources through our website and our social media posts, have the questions you can ask your candidates, and we hope to be empowering Canadian voters to be able to ask those questions and drive that message home when they meet with the candidates. And again, that work will continue after the election as well.
Dania, your campaign for this election focuses on 4 specific demands. One is boycotting settlement goods. One is ending arms sales to Israel. The other 2 escape me for the moment. I'm sure you can remind me.
Yeah.
But why those 4? There are a variety of campaigns about Israel's treatment of children, about the Jewish National Fund, about political prisoners, about so why did your group decide that those were the 4 you wanted to focus on for this election?
Sure. So the other 2 is upholding international law for Palestinians and the protecting of freedom of expression on Palestine. So those are the other 2.
And that means here in Canada, protecting.
Here in Canada,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And we have seen, that being whittled down through the adoption of the IRA definition. There's definitely a lot of concern around the online hate legislation and what that could potentially mean for Palestinian advocates. So that's the local domestic piece of it.
Right.
So these 4 demands are definitely what we call the bare minimum or the starting point on the work on Palestine and the changes we want to see by the political parties and our government on Palestine. And then within those 4 themes, there are sort of sub points, which can include those issues that you have raised now. So they really kind of set out thematically, and those specific points can fall under those themes to allow the flexibility for again the grassroots organization who might specifically work on children and specifically work on prisoners or specifically work on the JNF, to kind of slot those under those particular themes. And again, because we know how election campaigning works, you don't usually have very much time with political parties. We wanted to keep the messaging, very simple, very
Sure.
rapid fire, where that allows room for, some discussion, and, easy to remember for a voter who happens to stumble across a politician, while out grocery shopping or wherever they may be. The 4 themes, and so the way the 4 themes came about, and again, there's like sub themes within those, is we did a large sort of scan of all the political campaigns or advocacy campaigns that had been undertaken probably in the last 2 years, but particularly around what was happening in the spring. And so we kind of tracked all these campaigns. We looked to see what those demands were in those campaigns. We listed them out, and then we basically categorized them in those particular themes. And again, kept it pretty high level, so we wouldn't be excluding anyone who's working on other campaigns, that they'd be able to bring them in. Sure. But basically, these are, and the reason why we chose them and put them under these themes is because the political parties have been bombarded with these messages just prior to the election. So they can't say, oh, we don't know, we didn't hear about this, and I don't have an answer. Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of Canadians signed on to petitions on these particular issues. So we want to, again, as we mentioned, we want to amplify the work of the groups that have already, been doing the mobilization. We want to, again, bring that work to the forefront. Voters understand these issues quite well now because they were part of these, they signed on to these campaigns, and elected officials are now well versed on these issues because they've been the recipients of all the letters and the signatories on these particular issues. And again, they're bare minimums, and the hope is people will push them even further. Local groups will push their candidates and their elected officials even further after the election.
Dania Majid with Vote Palestine. Dania, thank you so much for explaining your campaign, your objectives, who you are, and we will see going forward how much impact you're able to have. Thank you very much for spending a few minutes with me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And for everyone interested in checking out the campaign, please visit our website, votepalestine.ca. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, so you can check out all the materials, and be sure to endorse the campaign as an individual or an organization and share it with your networks, because we want to grow this as big as possible before September 20th. So thank you very much.
And I actually will put a link to that in my blog post as well. So thank
Excellent.
you very much.
Thank you so much.